welcome to my channel. Today we are talking about For She Is Wrath by Emily Varga. For She Is Wrath is a revenge story. From the publisher's description, it says, a sweeping Pakistani romantic fantasy reimagining of the Count of Monte Cristo, where one girl seeks revenge against those who betrayed her, including the boy she used to love. 364 days. Framed for a crime she didn't commit, Dania counts down her days in a prison until she can exact revenge on Mazin, the boy responsible for her downfall, the boy she once loved. And she still can't forget. When she discovers a fellow prisoner may have the key to exacting that vengeance, a stolen jinn treasure, they execute a daring escape together and search for the hidden treasure. Armed with dark magic and new identity, Dania enacts a plan to bring down those who betrayed her and her family, even though Mazin stands in her way. But seeking revenge becomes a complicated game of cat and mouse, especially when an undeniable fire still burns between them, and the power to destroy her enemies has a price. As Dania falls deeper into her web of traps and lies, she risks losing her humanity to her fight for vengeance, and her heart to the only boy she's ever loved. That is pretty much a straightforward summary of what happens. I gave the book a 1-star. Premise is a 5 out of 5 for me. The premise is good. It's a revenge story. There is jinn magic involved. From the description, you expect to see schemes. You see people falling to their demise and getting justice, but the execution is lacking. So the underlying themes are there. Theme of revenge, destroying everything you are and everything around you. Because really, revenge stories can go 3 ways. Either go the Inigo Montoya way, where he gets his revenge and he is freed by it, so he's able to move on with his life. And then there's the second revenge, which is the character gets taken over by revenge, but then she's brought back at the brink and she realizes revenge is not everything and revenge is not worth it. In my last video, I talked about her soul for a crown. That's basically the plot for it. And then we have the third type of revenge, where the character destroys themselves and everyone and everything around them. Okay, so let's actually let's break it down. The biggest flaw for this book is the lack of scheming, the lack of planning. It is a revenge plot. Readers are set to expect some schemes, but what ends up happening is we have a revenge plot as seen by a 14-year-old person. So I actually don't know how old Dania is. I'm guessing she's fairly young, like maybe early 20s or something like that. But yeah, her revenge is very much like a revenge fantasy of a 12 or a 14-year-old. The narration is first person. So Dani tells us that she's been stewing in anger and hatred for the duration of her imprisonment, and she wants revenge. She wants to make Mazin pay. She says that multiple times, repeatedly. But then she doesn't actually tell us what her plan is. When Noor appears, Noor digs through prison. I think it took her 2 years to dig through, and she somehow ends up digging up to Dani's cell, which makes me question, like, if you are able to dig through stone for 2 years and you've been digging long enough to get turned around and appear through another prisoner's floor, what kind of prison is it? What stone is it? What is Noor even using? Because I don't think they were using tools. When Dani helps, she uses her hands. So right away, I'm forced to just go along with it and suspend my disbelief. But it doesn't become more logical after that. While they're digging through, there's a cave in. So Noor gets taken to the infirmary. Dani is left in the room with the door open. So she escaped. Oh, this is her second attempt, by the way. At the beginning, she actually escapes. She breaks the arm of the guard who gave her food. She manages to actually get outside the door after being in prison, being mistreated for a year. She manages to get outside the door. The only thing that stopped her was the prison warden returned early. So the warden was able to stop her outside. Again, suspension of disbelief. After the cave-in, Noor is taken to the infirmary. The guards left the door open. Dani was able to get out. She was able to get far enough that she had to pause and decide to go back for Noor. So she takes Noor with her. She is able to fight several guards. She's able to defeat the prison warden. The prison warden, she has a gut wound and she's just lying down defeated by this malnourished prisoner. While Dani was preparing to kill her, Noor tells her to stop, convinces her not to kill the warden, and Dani agrees, which is strange for a character who has been stewing in hatred and vengeance for 336 days, I don't know, for a year. Would that character let someone go? Especially someone who a direct hand in mistreating her in the prison? I don't think so. When Dani kind of lets her go, I right away kind of knew this would come back later on in the plot. Because the only reason that these things happen, that they don't, they decide not to kill someone, is because that someone will come back later on to bite their ass. Dani and Noor manage to escape the prison. They fight through several guards, which asks you to suspend your disbelief once again, because how would this malnourished, abused person for 1 year manage to fight off several guards? Dani tells the readers, she tells you she's a good swordsman. She tells you that, she's been training since she was a kid because her dad's a swordsmith, which, I mean, okay, you would be surrounded by weapons as a kid, but having your dad as a smith doesn't automatically make you proficient at the weapons that he makes. Anyway, they managed to escape the prison, but upon escaping, Danny right away says, maybe I actually should just go find my father. Maybe I should just forget revenge. When they teamed up together, Noor admits as well that she wants revenge too. So they team up and they plan their escape with the motivation that they want to go and get revenge. But then once they're actually out, Danny just says, actually, no, I don't want that. I just want to go be with my dad. For a character who tells you that they have been stewing in anger and hatred for a year, it doesn't make sense for them to just say, actually, no, I just want to go be with my family right away. It doesn't make sense. It's a contradiction. It makes the character feel indecisive or not thought out. Once they go out, they actually return to Danny's village, and then they find out that her father is actually dead. He's probably been dead for a while now, because when Danny got taken to prison, her father right away devised a plan to break her out, and that plan got him killed. Upon this realization, suddenly all the hatred and the pain, the anger comes back, and she wants vengeance again. So Noor takes Danny to a stash of magic seeds. The seeds are imbued with jinn magic. It can make you more powerful. It can have... Actually, it's not really clear how the magic seeds would work. Like, theoretically, it explains that you need specific doses of a combination of seeds to get the desired effect that you want. But what are the effects exactly? Because Danny and Noor uses the seeds to change Danny's appearance, to make her look like someone else temporarily. But what else can the seeds do? Can they give you super strength? Can they give you speed? I don't think it's explained well. But the emperor, he can use the seeds to rain fire on protesters. He could just burn the protesters. So what else could the seeds do? It's not really clear. It's not fleshed out. But yes, Danny and Noor go to this stash of seeds that Noor's father left for her, father and mentor left for her. Along with that cash, they found 2 bags of gold coins. So they take that as well. So they come out rich. They come out with bags of jinn seeds. At this point, I'm not clear as to what the revenge plan was. So okay, Danny wants to change her appearance, and then what? There's no laid out plan, like step-by-step plan that she gives you. She just says she wants Mazin to pay. She wants the emperor Vasid to pay, because Noor wants revenge on the emperor as well, because the emperor got her father/mentor killed. They don't discuss it. They get to the seeds. Danny transforms herself to look like someone else, and then they go buy properties in the city. They use the 2 pouches of gold to buy a huge mansion. They hire servants. They hire drivers. They use the money as if it's unlimited, because they buy jewels as well. And they kind of make a ruckus about it. They try to draw attention. Danny goes to the markets and asks for specific swords that she knows her dad had made. So that gets attention from a man called Castledor. But basically, this man was her dad's friend who betrayed him. The both of them were supposed to break Danny out, but then the friend ratted him out. So the dad was captured, the dad was killed. So Danny's plan was to lure this Castledor person out because she knows he is into special swords. And she knows that this Castledor guy took all her dad's swords, the swords that he made. It works, so Castledor invites Danny. Castledor shows her his collection. While being shown this collection, Danny bumps into Mazin for the first time. Suddenly, she's feeling things. Suddenly, her vengeance, hatred, and anger is fighting with her love for Mazin, for her yearning for Mazin. The whole book, it just goes, Danny makes a move to lure one of the people that wronged her. She encounters Mazin. She gets conflicted with her feelings with Mazin. She manages to get her vengeance, and then she moves on to the next person, and it repeats. I think the biggest letdown, the biggest flaw in this revenge plot is, like I said, Danny doesn't have a concrete plan. She doesn't lay it out. We don't know the steps of her schemes. She could have given us an outline, at least, just so we know where we are in the plot, just so we know where we are in her state of mind, in her progress. But yeah, she doesn't give anything, and how the plot unfolds is very convenient for her. So for example, so one of her schemes is to make Mazin fall for the new appearance. And then what? She just repeats a lot of times that, oh, she needs to make Mazin fall in love with this alter ego, and then she'll make him pay. How? By breaking his heart? By making him look like a fool for falling for a lie? She doesn't really say. She just says she will make Mazin fall in love, and then he will pay. So one of her schemes to make Mazin fall in love with the alter ego is to kidnap Mazin's sister, and then she would save the sister, and then that would make Mazin warm to her. And Danny does this by, she's walking the street, she sees a thief, a child. She follows this kid to an alley where there's a group of children who are thieves. There's a moment where like Danny gets caught off guard by a kid. She gets caught off guard by a kid because while she was following that kid thief, they actually know that she was following, so they corner her as well in the alley, which is how incompetent is Danny actually. What's her skill level that she managed to escape a heavily guarded prison while being malnourished, but she was ambushed by children in an alley in broad daylight, children that she also knows that were there because she followed that thief expecting to see more of them because she wants to hire them. So Danny hires the children to kidnap or to drag away Mazin's sister, and it works. For some reason, a group of children, street urchins, they manage to drag away a guarded, high-profile, noble woman who also can use a dagger, and Danny comes in to save her, and it plays out the way Danny wanted it to play out. Mazin's sister is very grateful for her. She tells the story to Mazin, and Mazin is equally grateful, if not more. He goes on to this campaign of finding who kidnapped the sister. It's very childish. It hinges on convenience. Because what are the odds that children could pull this off? What are the odds that it just goes smoothly at the first time? And then the seeds, it's called Zorat. You have to take specific measurements, specific blends to get the effect that you want. And Noor is one of the people who knows how to blend the seeds, the Zorat. In the book, we have two antagonists who died because they didn't know how to use the Zorat. They just eat a bunch of seeds. One of the antagonists is the warden because, like I said, she comes back. She manages to get the seeds because she kidnapped Noor and Danny traded the seeds for Noor. But then the warden just eats a lot of seeds and then she dies. Does she not know how to use the seeds? Because she's been after the seeds for as long as Noor has been imprisoned. So would she not know anything about the seeds? Because the emperor knows how to wield fire using the seeds. And he was the one who made a bargain with the genie. So how many people actually know about the seeds? How many people know how to use the seeds? If the emperor and his soldiers are taking the seeds, would the knowledge not be more spread out, especially to higher ranking people? Why does the warden who had been searching for the Zorat for years not know even the basics of it? Yeah, it's just very convenient for Danny and it doesn't make sense as a whole. Aside from the plot conveniently falling into place for Danny, she also faces little consequences. In the description, it says that Danny has to face the consequences or face the price of using the Zorat. But aside from hearing voices, aside from the dark veins in her hands, she doesn't really get any consequences. There are moments where she has thoughts, like she gets angry, she has dark thoughts. She would fight with Noor about it, and I get it that logically that is the effect of the Zorat, and that repeats several times throughout the book, but it doesn't click with Danny that was the effect of the Zorat. She hallucinates, or she hears voices, she hears her veins turning black, she notices herself getting angry or losing her emotions and taking it out on Noor, but it doesn't change her actions. It doesn't make her rethink her actions. She just continues on as if nothing happened and until the cycles repeat again. It's only until the end of the book that she realizes, oh, I've been hearing the jinn's voice. I've been influenced by the Zorat, which just makes the whole revenge plot fall flat in the middle. Even at the climax when the warden comes back into play and Noor is taken, she's kidnapped, Danny is forced to make a bargain with the jinn. And the jinn offered power, more power than the Zorat could offer, in exchange for Danny's body. So once Danny gets what she wanted, the jinn would possess her. It's treated as this big thing, as this big decision. It's treated as this price that's too high for Danny, but one that Danny would pay for Noor. But in the end, in the resolution, we don't see the consequences of that bargain because, again, everything is conveniently tied up. The jinn doesn't get a chance to possess Danny. He doesn't even come close to it. So yeah, while there's a threat of eventually Danny would have to pay the bargain, it doesn't really come to fruition. Even when the jinn comes to collect, he gets defeated by a different character. It's not even Danny who defeats the jinn. Which again, there's no consequences to Danny. There is no actual risk to Danny. The bargain that she makes doesn't really have a price, even though that's one of the main points that the description uses to sell the book. But we don't see that. It's very shallow. It's very convenient. And then there's also a lot of repetition, whether it's the themes, motives, or tension. But then it doesn't really add anything to what is already established in the past. It just recycles the same thing. Like Danny hearing voices, and then she sees the dark veins. Noor says she's worried about Danny being consumed by revenge. They fight about it. They make up. And then they continue on with the revenge. Even Noor, she expresses several times that she doesn't like what is happening to Danny, and yet she still goes along. So it's just a repeated cycle. Just a couple of examples of how convenient the plot is for Danny. Early on, when Danny was making a name for herself as the alter ego, trying to get notice from Castledor. So at 53%, Danny goes to a smith that was a friend of her father's. She's looking for her father's weapons that he forged, and this smith just gives her a mythical scimitar. So it's a scimitar that has a legend attached to it with a historical figure in the world, and this smith just gives the scimitar to Danny while in disguise because Danny mentioned her father's name, the smith who gave the weapon. He says, "The swordsmith you spoke of gave this to me for safekeeping. I've been waiting for someone to claim it since." I would assume that Danny was in disguise when she went here because the smith says, "The swordsmith you spoke of." He didn't say your father. So I'm assuming he is looking at a stranger's face. Why would he give this mythical sword to a random person just because this random person dropped your friend's name? I don't get it. And the smith even gives it with his blessing. So how come your friend gave it to you for safekeeping and then you just give it away to the first random person who drops your friend's name? It doesn't make sense. Okay, and then we have 54%. Danny gets her revenge on Castledor, the scimitar, the legendary scimitar. Danny uses it to frame Castledor of theft. So she kind of lets Noor spread the word that she has this mythical dagger, mythical scimitar, and she dismisses the guards for one night. Eventually the scimitar disappears, and Danny makes a whole show, confronts Castledor, accuses him of theft. And for some reason, this happens in a public place. Danny is waiting outside Castledor's house. Noor brings Castledor out with a guard. There's a guard with them. And then, yeah, they have this public accusation happening going on. And Danny makes a whole speech about it, about how theft would be punished by sending Castledor to the working camps. And then Danny makes a show of like saying,
"Well, actually, you can get out of this if you have your family member take your place."
She said this publicly in front of the people gathering outside the house, in front of the commander or the soldier that went with them. Castledor at first denies that he has family, but then Danny brings out his daughter. So they found out, I don't know how, Noor finds out that Castledor has a daughter. And they bring out the daughter. Again, Danny tells Castledor that he could go to the camps himself or he can send his daughter in his place. Castledor does the second thing. He says, okay, just take her, the daughter. And then there's an uproar. The audience now are calling Castledor, a coward. They are insulting him, telling him he's a coward for sending his daughter instead of going himself. And then we get this. So this is Danny.
"By the way, there's no exception to the law."
So Danny just lied in front of a guard, a commander, in front of the public that you can have your family take your place in the camps. She just made that up. She just lied about it. And no one said anything about it. The guard with them didn't say anything about it. The citizens that are watching didn't say anything about it. Okay, if the citizens don't know their rights, I guess they wouldn't know. But the captain or the commander of the guard was right there. He was listening to them. Why did no one correct her? Why did they interrupt that she's wrong? Wouldn't that be illegal? Not even Castledor knew? Why did the guard let Danny make a whole speech about letting a family member replace him if that law doesn't exist? Does no one in the crowd know their rights? Does no one know about their law? Does the guard in front of them not know? Does Castledor not know? Who knows? They just let Danny have her own performative speech and have this reveal that, oh, by the way, there's no such law. I made that up. And then everyone was okay with it. Castledor will be arrested, not this girl, they say. As if they actually believed that. I don't know, but do you see what I mean when it's very convenient for Danny? It's a revenge fantasy of a 14-year-old. And 56%, Noor brings up the idea that why don't they just burn the Zorat seeds? They established this from the beginning. Noor and Danny know. They know that the Emperor's power comes from the Zorat seed. So if they want to get the revenge on the Emperor and topple his kingdom, why not go for the Zorat seeds in the first place? Like from the very beginning. Go for the Zorat seeds, weaken the Emperor's power, pick off the other people one at a time as the kingdom burns. There's no answer for that. Noor brings it up, but then they don't say why they shouldn't do it. It makes it even more stupid because at the end, that's what they do. After everything else, they do end up burning the Zorat seeds. So why not just do that in the first place? Why not? I mean, logically, I know it's to delay the plot because once you burn down the Zorat seeds, like what else is left of the story? But at least give us a reason why they did not want to destroy the Zorat seeds from the very beginning, before even Danny got addicted to it. Why make all this scheme about changing your appearance and making Mazin fall in love with you and yada yada yada? Why not just go straight to the source of the Emperor's power? Again, it reads like a revenge fantasy of a teenager. Yeah, in chapter 56, I just noted because when I mentioned that repeating thing where Danny and Noor argue about the merits of getting revenge, Danny says, "Words spilled out of my mouth. words I couldn't control, words that seem dictated by something else. And I just had to note that because, yeah, the words are dictated by the author, it's dictated by the plot. It's no longer grounded in the characters' goal, it's no longer grounded in their motivations, in their personalities. It's just about moving the plot where the author wants it to go. I get it. I know that the Zorat seeds are having an effect on Dani. It's making her more bloodthirsty. I get that. But at the same time, I just think this is so funny because that is what is happening. The plot, the words, the characters, they're just all being controlled by the author who wants to get the plot to a certain point. Another crazy plan Dani has is they were invited to the palace because as part of the plan, getting close to the palace to destroy Mazin, destroy the emperor, there's a protest going on and it's big enough that it stops the carriage. So Noor and Dani, they are masquerading as nobles. They're masquerading as rich people. For some reason, the 2 bags of gold seems endless to them because they just keep buying things. So Dani and Noor are masquerading as nobles. They go into the palace on a carriage. There's a protest going on. The protesters end up attacking the carriage because why not? They are one of the 1% who are draining the food source of the common people. While they are getting pelted with rotten mangoes, a fire starts, a jinn fire, and it just incinerates the protesters. So that's the first look of how the emperor uses the Zorat. He wields fire and just burned most of the protesters. And in the carriage, Noor and Dani think, actually, maybe we can use the protesting as a means to rile up the people and make them think the emperor is cursed. But the people are already protesting. They're already against the emperor. So their plan is to destroy the crops that is the source of the city's food so that the common people would get more riled up and get more frustrated and angry at the emperor and think that he's cursed. And then Noor brings up, okay, if we destroy the food source, what are the common people going to eat? And Dani says they'll just buy a plot of land that is big enough to be the alternate food source of the people. Let's break it down. First of all, how much gold does Dani and Noor have that they can buy a plot of land that could feed the entire city on top of the palaces, the servants who are routinely getting paid, the drivers, the jewelry, the clothes? How much money did Noor's dad leave them? Like, it just seems limitless the way they are using it. Okay, they bought a plot of land, whatever. Okay, they were able to do it. That plot of land is able to feed an entire city. Okay, so that's the food source. But the reason for buying that land is because they're going to destroy the food source of the people to get them riled up. But if they have a plot of land that could feed an entire city, why would the common people be riled up by the emperor's crops failing if they have an alternative source? Second, why do they even need to rile up common people when they're already in the streets risking their lives to protest what the emperor is doing to them? Why not put your resources to arm the common people, to supply them with everything that they need to stage a revolt? If you are against a crown, you see other people revolting against that crown, normally you would join them and help them because you have a common goal. But then Dani and Noor thinks of this, okay, yeah, it's a good plan. Let's just burn the emperor's crops so the people would get more riled up. Like, why? Why not just arm them using the money that you used to buy that plot of land that could feed the entire city? It doesn't make sense. The scheming is not scheming, it's illogical. It's, again, like a revenge fantasy of a 14-year-old. Actually, 14-year-olds probably have more sophisticated revenge because they do get sneaky. They have like twisted ways to get back at you. Yeah, this is just a whole lot of illogical choices that conveniently works out for Dani. Yeah, and remember the street urchins, the children? They agreed to work with Dani because they figured out somehow that Dani is not aligned with the emperor. What? How smart are the street urchins that they managed to realize this and that they managed to kidnap like a guarded noble woman? And then we have 68%. Dani and Noor do the thing. They destroy the emperor's crops. They use the Zorat again. So Dani ingests a different blend, a different recipe. She just manages to spread rot by touching her hand on the ground. Again, like, what are the limits of the Zorat? What can and what can't it do? Because it seems like it just does everything that Dani needs to happen for the plot. Okay, so after they do this, a guard actually catches them in the fields. Like, the crops have failed. It's almost instantly. And then a guard appears. Noor and Dani are there. And the guard doesn't question what happened to the crop. The guard doesn't put two and two together. Like, two people who are not supposed to be there are there just when the crops failed. So automatically I would think like, okay, maybe there's a connection. But then Danny, the best swords person in the whole kingdom, manages to knock out the guard. Noor brings up, what if someone finds the guard? What if he talks? Blah, blah, blah. And Danny pulls out beer from the guard. So the guard happens to be carrying beer and pours beer all over the guard and says it's easy to just make him out to be a drunk. That's why he's passed out in the fields. Would a guard normally be carrying beer around? Would security guards be carrying beer while they're on a shift? So again, just convenience. At 67%, Noor and Danny somehow manages to steal Zorat from the Emperor's stock. At this point, Castledor is done. His reputation is done. He's in jail. Now, Danny moves on to the second person. Boss.
Tapos ko.
Kain ta?
Yan.
Ibagbagam namdamagin.
Pagmanaan.
Okay, go ka lang. Bye. Hello, it's a new dawn. It's a new day. I'm back. So just a quick story time. My sister and I went to Costco yesterday. I had to pause the video. So while at Costco, you know how they have foods you can try. I tried a dip. It says onion and chives, and I had an allergic reaction. So yeah, I wasn't able to finish the video yesterday because the allergy pills knocked me out. Yeah, here we are. It's a new dawn. It's a new day. Let's continue on with the review. So where were we? So yeah, Danny and Noor poisoned the Emperor crops. They got caught by a guard. They knocked out the guard. Danny pours beer over the guard because the guard happens to have beer on him for whatever reason, and Danny makes him look like a drunk who slept on the fields. So yeah, so they managed to destroy the crops, which again, there's so much convenience for her. It's so easy for Danny to just succeed in her plans. There's no real obstacle, there's no real risk. Everything just goes smoothly for her, which makes this revenge plot feel flat because there's no resistance. Danny is just there doing and succeeding at everything she does, even though it's not well thought out, even though she barely has a plan. At 75%, Danny realizes that the voices that she's hearing is from the jinn. She realizes just now that it's being caused by the Zorat she's taking. So throughout the book, Danny hears a voice saying revenge, just repeated throughout the book. It hits you on the head with it, just revenge, that kind of thing. And she does question it as it happens. She asks Noor, did you hear that? Did you hear that? Noor says she didn't hear anything. Most of the time, Danny hears it. She's alone, but she looks around expecting someone to be behind her. And it doesn't click to her that she started hearing the voices when they went to go to the Zorat. She heard the voice there for the first time. And then as she's taking more Zorat, she hears the voice more frequently. Only at 75% that she acknowledges or that she realizes that it's coming from inside her head. I mean, obviously, it says, I came to realize the voice came from inside my head. As a reader, you would know this. And I would question why Danny is not questioning this. Why does she only realize at 75% that it's coming inside her head? When Noor confessed with her that she hasn't heard anything, the times that she heard the voice, she's alone, nobody's around her. So why only now? It just makes her seem stupid. And then at 75%, we get flashbacks from before. The chapter would mark it as like before. And we'd have flashbacks of Danny and Mazin as teenagers when they first met, how they became lovers. One of the flashbacks, Mazin came to Danny and confided in her that the Emperor gloated to Mazin that he killed Mazin's mom. Mazin tells Danny the horrible or like the questionable things that the Emperor does, and Danny thinks this man didn't care about anyone but himself, not even the ones in his household. But didn't Danny know that already? Because the first time Danny and Mazin met, she right away hated Mazin because she noticed Mazin was wearing the palace colors or palace uniforms. So she knew right away that Mazin was working for the Emperor. So now at 75%, after Mazin confides with Danny, Danny thinks this man didn't care about anyone but himself, not even the ones in his household. Why are you saying this as if it's new information for you? When from the very beginning, you already know that the Emperor is not a good man. That's the very reason you hated Mazin at first sight. I don't know. And then at 77%, Danny says, my well-formulated plans were slipping through my grasp. I just noted, what plans? Because really, we're not shown Danny and Noor planning. We're just shown Danny ordering Noor around to say, okay, you Noor, do this, go to the guard, do that, blah, blah, blah. We see Noor sneaking out and saying, okay, I need to do some sneaking around. They managed to steal Zorat from the Emperor's healers. How did they manage that? We don't know. We just see it in the background. Once the commander, one of the people that Danny wants revenge on, once he falls into the trap, we We just then know that they stole Zorat. But how did they do that? We're not shown. We're not shown how they planned it. We're not shown how they did it. It's just told to us that they stole from the Emperor's healers. Not only are we not seeing the revenge plot unfold, we are also seeing very convenient things happening. Oh yeah, they managed to steal the Zorat and plant it on the commander and frame him as the thief. We don't really feel the payoff because we didn't see those steps. We didn't see them actually put this in plan. Going back to that point where Warden Dofsa, like the warden of the prison that they escaped from, she comes back, she kidnaps Noor, and she uses Noor to get the Zorat from Danny. The jinn appears to Danny, and the jinn offers Danny more power in exchange for her body, right? So there's a line where Danny says about the Zorat, "I didn't need it anymore." So we are presented with this choice. Either Danny gets Noor back or loses the Zorat, which is her means to get revenge. So it's supposed to be these two impossible choices. Does she save her friend or does she keep the power? But then the jinn comes in and offers this bargain, more power for her body eventually. So these impossible choices become moot, because what is she losing really? If she says, "I didn't need it anymore" about the seeds, is there even weight to that choice? Is there even a consequence? Is there even an impact having to choose between Noor or power? Because in the end, Danny just got more power. Yeah, she lost the seeds, the Zorat, but she has more power now with the jinn. She can control people. So again, what is she losing? What is she actually fighting for? What are her obstacles? So after Dofsa dies from overdose with the Zorat, Danny saves Noor from Dofsa. Danny no longer has the disguise. So Dofsa recognizes Danny even with the disguise. So Danny no longer has her disguise. She has the jinn inside her. She gives the seeds to Noor, who is leaving Danny. So she's leaving to go back to Danny's village and to, I think she was going to go back to warn Danny's grandma and just prepare her to leave because they're going to leave the kingdom after Danny settles things, after she gets her revenge on Mazin. As Noor leaves for Danny's village, says this line, "Let them see who you really are," which I think is supposed to be this profound thing, like in Black Panther, where T'Challa is getting beat up by, I think it was Killmonger. Was it that part? Anyway, they're doing the king ritual, right? And T'Challa is getting beat up. Queen yells at him, "Show them who you are." So that's a profound moment, right? That's a strong moment. Reading this, it kind of made me think of that. But at this point, when Noor tells them, "Let them see who you really are," what are you referencing? Because like, what do you mean? Show them your real face. Don't hide behind the disguise anymore. But at the same time, I don't think this line landed as it was meant to be, because what is even Danny's personality? What exactly is she supposed to show her enemies aside from her real face? So in Black Panther, show them who you are. T'Challa is the king. T'Challa is the Black Panther. He is a prince. So there's a lot of references for what and who he is. He's a protector. He was meant to protect his kingdom. But in here, who is Danny? Who exactly is Danny? What does Danny have that she needs to show her enemies? So it falls flat for me because it makes it seem like this cool parting line. Show them who you really are. Who is Danny? Okay, so after Noor leaves, Danny goes to confront Mazin. They fight a bit, but the action is not very clear. I know they were sparring. Danny was going for it, but Mazin was just blocking. Actually, before they fight, Mazin tells Danny that he knew all along, that he recognized her even with the disguise, because the way the Zorat works, when Danny changed her looks, Noor says that Danny needs to keep one aspect of her physical self to make the transmutation work. So Danny changes everything except her hands, because her hands are, they're warrior hands. She has scars on it. Her hands know how to wield the blade, so that's why she keeps her hands. Now, when Danny confronts Mazin, Mazin tells her that he was suspicious of the disguise because when he held the disguise's hand, he saw the scars, he felt the scars, and he knew that those were Danny's scars. So Mazin knew all along that it was Danny who was walking around the palace and flirting with him. So Danny's plan was to seduce Mazin with the disguise and then break his heart and then get revenge on him, right? So now we realize that Mazin knew all along. So now thinking back on it, that was pretty early on because that was after Danny saved the sister, right? With the fake kidnapping. So if Mazin knew even then was Danny even doing anything with the revenge plan? Because not knowing this would seem like Mazin was falling for her trap, because Mazin was flirting back with the disguise. Mazin was reciprocating. Actually, while on disguise, Danny was taken by Mazin to his room and they kissed. They almost did something more, but then Danny stopped it and they left. Now we know Mazin knew all along. So was Mazin falling for the trap, or was he just going along with it because he knew it was Danny? He says he's always loved Danny. Was the make Mazin fall in love with me plot even successful? It just just cheapens things. It makes it shallow. There's no reward. There's no obstacle. There's no fighting for what she wants. There is no reward. Everything just goes the way Danny wanted. So during this confrontation, Mazin explains that he did not frame Danny while in the palace. Danny and Mazin were supposed to meet in like the gardens or something. They were supposed to meet, but instead of finding Mazin, Danny finds a dead body of a northern chieftain. So the northern chieftain, he is sort of an enemy of the emperor. There are riots or like there are protests happening in the north. So this northern chieftain came to the palace to talk to the emperor about that, make peace or something. And Mazin's plan was to ally with the north to stage a coup. But on the night that Mazin and Danny are supposed to meet, the chieftain is dead. Danny found him. The guards and Mazin come into the scene seeing that. Right away, they blame Danny. And Mazin, instead of fighting with her and escaping, Mazin asks Danny to surrender. He doesn't really do it casually or easily. While the guards are trying to arrest Danny, Mazin is frozen, hesitating, and you can see him thinking about his next steps. The chief is dead, like what's he gonna do? He and his sister are living in the palace. They are the emperor's wards. They are working for them, but the emperor is also taking care of them, keeping them fed, housed. So now Mazin was stuck between two places because his coup failed, and then he still has his sister to think about, to protect. He ends up asking Danny to stand down. That's why Danny was taken to prison, and that's why Danny hates Mazin so much now. Mazin explains that he had to think about his sister and that he really did his best to protect Danny. Danny would have been executed, but Mazin stopped that. That's why Danny was left in prison for 364 days instead of being executed. And Mazin also tried to protect Danny's dad as well when he was caught. He tried to delay or stop the execution, but he wasn't successful in that. Mazin explains this. While they're fighting, he doesn't really attack. So Danny attacks him, but he just blocks. And then eventually he drops his weapon. He goes to his knees and apologizes and tells Danny that he loves her. He's always loved her. Danny forgives him. So this girl who spent 364 days in prison, stewing in hatred and anger and vengeance, forgives Mazin after one apology, after an explanation. She didn't even make him bleed, I think. There was not even strangling. There's no blood drawn. She didn't even use her jinn magic to make Mazin squirm a bit. So what's the point of the revenge plot? What's the point of telling the readers that she wants revenge, that she wants Mazin to pay, that she wants Mazin to feel all the pain that Danny felt? When you make Danny forgive Mazin in just one scene, she doesn't forgive him completely, but she accepts him back and they get back together. After the apology, they get back together. What is the point of being beaten over the head that Danny wants revenge? Danny wants blood. Danny wants them to pay. Does she? Does she really? Because her action says otherwise. And I get it. Part of her still loves Mazin. But the book markets itself as a revenge story first. So where does the revenge go exactly? In the description, it makes Mazin the focus of the revenge. Because Mazin was the man that he loved. Mazin was the one who betrayed her. Mazin's betrayal hurt her the most, right? So you go all through this book, and then at 87%, she just lets Mazin off the hook. Danny says, "Why can't I kill you?" And I just put on the note, girl didn't even try to. She was fighting with Mazin with the swords, and it's been established that Danny is the better swordsperson. She always beat Mazin. I think Mazin only won against her once or twice. So now, at the climax of this revenge story, she's going at it with Mazin with her sword. Why did she not draw blood? Why did she not give him a scar or something? If she's the better swordsperson, she could have done this easily. And Mazin wasn't even fighting. He was just defending, trying to block fatal wounds. And then Danny says, "Why can't I kill you?" At this point, she still has that jinn power, right? She could have made Mazin just stop moving, or she could have, I don't know, used the jinn power to strangle him, Darth Vader style. But yeah, she does none of that. So her actions contradict what the readers are told. She wants revenge, revenge, revenge. It gets repeated so much. And then at this moment, this is her chance. She doesn't take it. Not even a little bit. She doesn't even try. So I don't know, it's just frustrating because the description even tells you that Mazin is the focus of her revenge, but she lets it go so easily. And it's not even like, okay, pause, we're gonna have a truce. It's not even that. They get together, they sleep together. You know, she and Mazin, they get on a horse, they flee. They are planning to go to Danny's village to get Noor, to get the grandma, and they are leaving the kingdom. That's their plan now. Danny says, "I was leaving the emperor and my revenge behind. Despite that, my heart rode free." After getting people killed because you incited the people, after destroying their food source, after riling them up, after basically making them your fodder, you've destroyed the food source of the city. You've incited the people, like you've fanned the flames even more, made things more chaotic with the protesting, and now you're just gonna leave? Now that you have Mazin, you're just gonna leave? Mazin and Danny, while they flee, they stop at the inn, they sleep together, and then they go on to Danny's village. they find the grandma's house empty, and then they go to Danny's dad's forge, and there they find the grandma, but Noor isn't there. So Noor is missing. Grandma is there sitting in the dark being weird, and we find out she has the Zorat seeds. Mazin goes to find Noor. Danny and the grandma have this confrontation. So it's revealed the grandma makes a villain monologue saying that she was the one who killed the chief, because it was the chief who killed Danny's mom, and the grandma knew that the chief would be in the palace, so she took her chance. She killed the chief, and she planned on Danny taking the fall because the grandma, for whatever reason, was in the palace. So Danny and her dad goes to the palace because her dad makes weapons for the emperor. So it makes sense. But the grandma is also there. She just gets casually invited to the palace as well. So the grandma is in the palace. She overhears Danny and Mazin's plan to meet at the gardens. So the grandma thinks this is her opportunity to get revenge on Danny's dad as well. Because Danny's grandma and Danny's dad don't get along. The grandma thinks her daughter, Danny's mom, was too good, was too strong for Danny's dad. Basically, she thinks her daughter deserved more than what her husband is, something like that. So the grandma says that Danny's mother was strong enough to rule the northern tribes, but instead she married Danny's dad and lived a normal life as a smith's wife. The grandma held resentment over this, and the chief killed Danny's mom. When the grandma knew that the chief would be in the palace, she took her opportunity. She bargained with a jinn to kill the chieftain, and knowing Danny and Mazin had plans to meet, place the body there and frame Danny. So basically it was all the grandma's fault. If this information came before Mazin and Danny got back together, before Danny let go of her revenge on Mazin, it would make more sense, I think. She framed Danny intentionally to make her dad pay, because the grandma knew the dad would go and save Danny. I don't know if she foresaw the execution, if she expected the execution, but yeah, grandma wanted to frame Danny so that her dad would go after her and risk being a traitor, basically. So if this information came first and then Danny managed to let go of her anger and feelings of betrayal with Mazin, it would make more sense, I think. But no, we get her forgiving Mazin first and then this info dump via villain monologue. So the grandma has the Zorat. She tied Noor up, I don't know how, and took the Zorat seeds from Noor. So the grandma, this old woman, tied Noor up, took the seeds, and she eats Zorat seeds. She is the second person to kind of just shovel Zorat into her mouth, because I did mention that 2 antagonists die from Zorat consumption. The grandma is the second one. Does she not know that you have to take specific combinations of Zorat? Because she did bargain with a jinn, so she has knowledge of the magic source. Does she not know about the Zorat? Again, who knows actually about the Zorat? Because we know that the emperor restricts the production of Zorat. I don't know, it's just a very, very hand-wavy world building. I wrote on my notes, quote, I wanted to see how far she would go. Why? I think there was the part where Danny let the grandma eat the seeds. She let the grandma do her villain monologue to see how far she would go. Why? Why not restrain her? Danny saw the Zorat seeds was near the grandma, so why not prevent all that? Why let her do things just to see how far she would go? Like, what do you mean? Why do you need to see how far she would go? Why not just stop the threat right there? I think this is just because we need a second boss battle. So the grandma takes the Zorat and then they have a fight with Danny. Danny uses the jinn magic, right? She does something to counter whatever the grandma did. And then the grandma goes, so you've made a bargain too. As in, so you've also made a bargain with a jinn. And then later on, when the grandma throws fire at Danny, kind of like the emperor, she uses fire, but Danny walks through it or parts the fire, something like that. Again, action is not clear. And then the grandma says, how did you do that? How much did you consume? As in, how much Zorat did you consume? But previously, the grandma said, so you've made a bargain too. So which is it? Does the grandma think that Danny made a bargain with a jinn? Or does she think she consumed Zorat? Because the two are not the same. Consuming Zorat is not the same as bargaining directly with a jinn. There's a contradiction there. At 94%, the grandma dies from Zorat overdose. Danny has to explain like, oh, she must have taken a different dosage from Tofsa. It happens throughout this book where the narration over-explains things. Like it spoon-feeds you the information, kind of like this one. Now she must have taken a different dose from Tofsa. Danny tries to save the grandma. She actually says, I'll try to help you. And she tries to take out the Zorat in her system, but it's too much. If she takes it out, it's gonna kill her. And she realizes that actually she's not gonna give more of herself for the grandma, for other people, which is a nice sentiment. It's a nice theme to have, but this wasn't the theme throughout the book. It just comes on in this scene. There's no setup for it. Throughout the book, it's about her revenge. It is about her taking the Zorat and changing for the worse. She is getting addicted to Zorat. So this revenge is making her worse. And the lesson is, it's not worth it. It's not a subtle message. Noor keeps bringing it up verbally. That's the overarching theme, that revenge is not worth it. And then there's suddenly this theme of Dani realizing she shouldn't give more of herself to things that don't matter, something like that, which is, it's not too far off with the revenge thing, but it's not the same. So there's two messages here, and then suddenly we have this, I shouldn't give more of myself to people who don't deserve it, blah, blah, blah. And she thinks the same of Mazin as well. Mazin was working for the emperor to keep on his good graces, basically, to protect his sister. And then Dani thinks like, oh, he doesn't have to do that anymore. So where did that come from? That wasn't the theme that you're trying to do in the book. She actually says to Mazin, don't give more of yourself to him, as in to the emperor. I get it, it's adjacent, but it's not the same, which still feels out of the blue because that is not the theme that you were building on throughout the book. Okay, so after the grandma dies, after they free Noor and Mazin are ready to leave the kingdom, but then Dani realizes the Zorat is still there, and until that the Zorat is gone, the emperor would keep making problems. So Dani says, actually, we need to go back, we need to destroy the Zorat plants. Which, again, why did you not do that in the first place? Why go through all this nonsense, non-plot things? Why go through this half-baked plans that are very conveniently successful, only to flee the kingdom and then only to say, actually, no, we're going to do this instead? Do you see how Dani flip-flops depending on what the plot needs? Dani changes her mind again. She decides they need to go back, they need to destroy the Zorat plants. Mazin and Noor says, sure, let's go. They go to the fields, they start burning it. The emperor appears. Is this the first appearance of the emperor? I don't remember. I have a vague memory of me going like, the emperor appears now? Like, I don't think he appeared. Maybe he appeared once. Or this is the first time we're seeing him. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Anyway, the emperor comes to the fields with guards. The guards are all dosed up with Zorat. So Noor is setting fire to the plants while Dani, Mazin, and the emperor have this confrontation. Dani tries to do what she did with the grandma. She planned to suck out the Zorat like a poison. She does that to the emperor. The emperor is weakened by this. The guards, I think they're just standing there. I don't think they attack. They're just watching, standing. The jinn shows up. They have a little confrontation with Dani. Before anything happens though, the emperor stabs the jinn in the back and the jinn dies. And then Dani removes the Zorat traces in her body. So she just sucks out all this Zorat poison and it disappears. It's gone now. It's destroyed. So the jinn is dead. The Zorat traces in Dani's body, in the emperor's body, in the soldier's body, they're all gone. And then we have Mazin at 98%. Mazin offers to take the emperor with them. Okay, so yeah, the fields are on fire. The emperor is on the ground. He's defeated. He's crumpled. They need to leave because they're gonna get burned with the fields. And Mazin, who planned a coup for years, who knows that the emperor was responsible for him and his sister's almost death, offers his hand to the emperor to take him with them away from the fire. And then we have Dani who says, don't give more of yourself to him, mirroring Dani's revelation when she tried to kill the grandma. This is the resolution of the revenge plots. With the revenge theme and this theme of not giving yourself to people who don't matter, like I mentioned a while ago, it's parallel, but it's not the same thing. And I wish that it was more connected in the book. Dani's revelation comes off as disjointed because it's so close. It's so close to the point that the book is trying to make, but it's not the same. It feels a bit off. I feel like the point didn't land accurately. Like this is the bullseye, it kind of lands in this area. Okay, so they leave the emperor in the burning fields. I'm gonna assume the emperor was taken by the guards. I don't know. In my mind, they were just standing there watching the whole thing go down. The action is not clear again. Dani, Noor, Mazin run from the fields. They watch the Zorat destroyed. Noor lingers, watching everything burn down, and she says like, she has to make sure that her father's work with the Zorat is completely destroyed. Now the emperor doesn't have Zorat, so the Zorat is destroyed. And then they leave. They go back to Dani's village, I think, or they go to a different village. I'm not sure. 98%. Dani says, I came for revenge, but left with something much more worthwhile. Friendship. I mean, she has one friend. She has one friend who she antagonized while taking the Zorat. She and Noor fought about it, and then they make up, and then they fight, and then they make up again. Yeah, she came out with friendship, except she only has one friend, and then she has Mazin, her ex to enemies to lovers again. We get to the end where it's revealed Mazin and Dani run a sword training class. So Dani teaches people how to sword fight, which comes out of nowhere. The book tries to tie it back to Dani and her experience with her father, who was a smith. Having a father as a swordsmith doesn't mean you automatically would be good at swordplay. It's not the same skill. I mean, yeah, maybe Dani's dad also knew how to fight. That could be something, but the way it's written in the book, it ties Dani's skills to her dad being a smith. And yeah, it just comes out of nowhere because like no point in the book does Dani express this inclination of trying to teach people how to wield a sword. She kind of repeats throughout the book, I'm a good swordsman. I'm the best swordsman to ever sword. I am better than Mazin. Mazin never beat me before. She verbally establishes how good she is with a sword, but never once did she hint that she enjoys teaching swordsplay. There's no hint about her expressing interest in teaching swordsplay. We just have those flashbacks where she spars with Mazin, but it's always about her being better than Mazin. It's always about her noticing, oh, Mazin is actually handsome, but Mazin is bad at swordplay. I'm better. It's always that. It's not about like actually teaching Mazin how to wield a sword better is fun. It's fulfilling. It's not like that. So her being a teacher for swordplay comes out of the blue. Mazin is there to help, I guess. Noor is leaving, which honestly I think she should have done once Dani bosses her around. I would have left Dani. But yeah, she's a good friend, but now she's like, Emperor Vazid is gone, Zorat is gone. Now I want to try to find my mom's family. Mazin and Dani watch her go. They say that, oh, she'll be back because she always has a home with us. But honestly, good for Noor. I think she should have left earlier. And then we get this throwaway line from Mazin, I think. They're talking about their future or whatever. And they mention that Anam, Mazin's sister, is now ruling the city. Why? On what right or on what merit is she ruling the city? Because throughout the book, it doesn't really hint that Anam is involved in politics. Actually, the book makes her look like a dainty noblewoman because she got kidnapped by kids. You know, she spends her day shopping using the emperor's money. Like, she's not a bad person. She's actually sweet and kind. But there's no hint that she has political leanings. There's no hint that she's involved with whatever's going on in the city. So for her to rule the city, it comes out of nowhere. There's no other advisors. There's no other more experienced people that are in the palace that could take in the emperor's place. It had to be Mazin's sister. It doesn't make sense. So Mazin and Dani live happily ever after, teaching people how to use swords. Anam is ruling the city for whatever reason. I don't know her qualifications. It's not hinted at. But yeah, like I said in the beginning, this is a revenge fantasy of a teenager. It's not a good revenge story. Everything is conveniently resolved. Everything conveniently lands on Dani's lap. We don't see her plans. We don't see her preparing the plans. We don't see her acting on the plans. Everything is done in the background, mostly by Noor. All the action is in the background, and then we're just told this happened, and then we see Dani succeeding. Dani doesn't face any consequences. She makes a bargain with the jinn, which at the moment is like a big thing, but it resolves itself. It's not even Dani who frees herself from the jinn. The stakes are very shallow. The book tries to make the stakes so big, so intense, but in reality, there is no stakes. There is no risk to Dani. You always know that she's gonna come out on top in the end because everything is convenient for her. Dani as a character is wishy-washy. Does she want revenge or not? Make a decision. It's repetitive as well without adding nuance to each time it repeats. The way it's written, I don't think it is delivering what the book said it was supposed to be. So that was For She's Wrath. I don't know if this video is going to make sense because I'm just ranting at this point. I don't have a script for this. I'm just here talking. Let me know if you've read the book. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if the revenge plot made sense to you. If you haven't read the book, let me know if listening to my video made sense. But yeah, that was For She Is Wrath. So that's it for me. I hope this video made sense, and I'll see you next time. Bye!